Gaddock Teeg versus Nath of the Gilt Leaf, Torbran, Thane of Redfell, and Krenko Mob Boss. A turn 1 land tax sounds alright, although we are on the play, so it's not necessarily going to do as much good. So I think an Enlightened Tutor into Sylvan Library is actually the way to go here. So let's go for... yeah, we can just get down a Plains, can't we? And we'll pass the turn like that. Just letting my opponents know that I built Gaddock Teeg and it's not a Stacks or Hate Bears deck. There are bits of Hate Bears in there, but not really all that much. It's more the typical Celestia build where we want to stop people playing on our turn. But even that, there's not a whole lot of it in the deck. I decided to build it around big creatures and drawing cards by casting creatures, so it's a heavy creature based deck, not that you'd know it from our opening hand. And we're just going to take advantage of the fact that no one's going to be able to wipe the board unless they have something like a Toxic Deluge is likely the only thing we're going to see. Maybe Oblivion Stone, something like that. So being able to have a lot of big creatures in play and without anyone being able to wipe the board sounds pretty good to me. Oh, and I must have skipped through the skipped through my opponent's turn there. I was going to go in for the Enlightened Tutor. Alright then. In that case, let's go for... we'll shock down the Temple Garden, and I'll get down a land tax, and then we'll go for that Enlightened Tutor play again. But, yeah, just holding off for a turn there by accident. Must have skipped through Nath's turn there and not realised. And actually, in my haste to rectify my mistake, I've shocked down the Temple Garden when we could have just played Bountiful Promenade, so already making mistakes, and it's only turn 2, that doesn't bode well. I've just recorded, you've probably seen it by now, I've just recorded Oloro Super Friends, and that was a hell of a thing to try and record, so feeling a little bit frantic mentally currently. I'll have to try and calm down a bit. Cheering Fanatic, whenever it attacks, choose a card name, and spells with the chosen name cost a generic less to cast this turn. So if they drop a land and swing in with that, they can probably go in for Krenko next turn. That's a 2/2 Goblin for 2 mana as well, which isn't awful. Never seen that before, a very good card. And unfortunately, looks like the Torbran player missed his land drop. Where do we want here? Until the end step. Then a Priest of Titania from Nath, so it looks like this is Elf Tribal. And of all the elves to get into, an Elf Tribal, Priest of Titania is really good. Let's hope they don't miss a land as well, though. Because I doubt the Priest of Titania is going to stick around for long while Torbran's in play. And now we will do what we were supposed to do at the end of last turn. We'll Enlighten Tutor for some card draw. Yeah, so out of all that, I think we go for Sylvan Library. Yeah, and skipping turns like we kind of did last turn is not really something you want to be doing in Gaddock Teeg, but I'm going to go in for the Sylvan Library now as opposed to our commander and hope that I think it's really Nath is the only one that's going to be able to do something for 4 CMC. That does entail them getting into a land next turn though. Then we'll play the tap land and pass the turn. Want to save the fetch for after the Sylvan Library because we might want to put some stuff that we don't care about on top and then shuffle them away. And then Krenko, with his Cheering Fanatic, deciding to swing in at Torbran. And let's see what card they name here. They name Krenko Mob Boss, as you would assume. So it looks like we're seeing their commander come down this turn. Then a Fireball, going on to the Cheering Fanatic from Torbran. They're not having the best of luck getting into mana, unfortunately. But that will stop Krenko from cheating some mana costs there. It will also keep him from generating as many Goblin tokens, although Krenko does include himself and his own ability. So they'll get at least one next turn. The second elf of the game coming down, Oracle of Muldiah for the Nath player. And they have an Arterial Flow. Each opponent discards 2 cards. Yeah, they don't care about the vampire thing, I'm sure, so we'll just have to try and put that up here. And I thought no one controlled more lands than us there, but thanks to the Oracle of Muldiah, they must have snuck down an extra land from the hand, so we will get to search here. I want to save some plains in the deck because we do have Emiria, and she cares about plains entering, so let's just go for some forests. And then Sylvan Library. And we've got Ancient Tomb, Containment Priest, I don't think we need to worry about. So let's put Ancient Tomb on top and Containment Priest as well. We can shuffle those away. We'll go for the Verdant Catacombs in order to shuffle them away. And we'll go for the Scattered Groves here. That's the one I'm thinking of, isn't it? Yeah, the Cycling Land. We'll put that into play. And then it is Gaddock Teeg, and we can pass the turn after that. I'm expecting Gaddock Teeg to eat some burn from Torbran. But the good thing about a 2-mana commander is that it's difficult to keep out of play. We could always put it in the bin and reanimate it with Karmic Guide as well, but I think it's too early to be doing that. Goblin Matron for our opponent, a very good goblin, one of the best ever printed actually. Enters the battlefield, search for a goblin and put it into your hand. We get to see what they look for here. And that is a Skirk Prospector. So play that next turn and they'll have 3 mana if they want to sacrifice the Goblin Matron. I would think they'd want to keep hold of as many goblins as possible at this point. They can obviously sacrifice the tokens that come in with Krenko as well. So if they're struggling on land drops, then Skirk Prospector seems like a good one to go for. Torbran hitting that land drop, so we might see that commander come into play now. And that is the first thing our opponent does. Windmill Slam a Torbran. Not revealing another land, it is a Nature's Claim on top of the Nath's library. And speaking of Nath, that might be exactly who's coming down here. Nath does make you discard at random, so it doesn't matter how much we fill our hand with cards with the land tax. It's still random. Otherwise we could just discard basics the entire game. But they're not going for their commander anyway. It is a Necropotence. We know one of the cards they're going to draw into. They've got 4 cards in hand, followed by a Sylvan Library, so that is their card draw sorted out. This is at the beginning of your draw step, and this is skip your draw step, so actually, that's a non-bo. Sylvan Library does nothing with Necropotence in play. Don't know if our opponent realised that. Now, deciding to exile with Necropotence, let's see how much they put into that. And in response, Krenko is going to make some goblins. Oh, there is a Collector Alf. There's a Krosan Grip as well. We can see what they're drawing into at least, thanks to the Oracle of Muldiah. Hopefully. No, of course. Mordor doesn't keep track of it all. But we know they've got a Krosan Grip. And that's good to know about. Then there's a Forest on top as well. So they've gone for 4 exiles with the Necropotence. Then they play a land with the Oracle of Muldiah. Yeah, that's actually quite a nice combination. I've never seen Oracle of Muldiah and Necropotence used in tandem before. You could exile cards off the top of your library until you hit lands, and then play them off the top. So there's no sense exiling lands with the Necropotence if you can just play them with Oracle. Now a Bottomless Pit on top as well. But they just decide to leave it there. They put the 5 cards, is that? Yeah, 5 cards into hand. And then they're going to have to discard something here because they've got 8 cards. And they decide to get rid of a forest. And that gets exiled with Necropotence. Now we get a land tax trigger again. We have to think about whether or not we want to rid ourselves of a bunch of lands or not. We could really thin our library by getting rid of all the basics. Okay, going for Nature's Claim onto Sylvan Library. Really need to keep the Sylvan Library in play here. So I'm going to go for Teferi's Protection. Don't like going for it so early, but really can't get rid of Sylvan Library here. We know that they've got a Krosan Grip is the only problem, but they might want to go for that on their own turn as opposed to ours. It forces them to use it anyway. I don't know if we can actually go for land tax while we're phased out. How many cards have we got in hand? We'll just get some... Yeah, we'll get some basic planes in hand and say done. And then we drew into Fierce Empath. So we will just get down the forest, which is not phased out. And we'll pass the turn like that, discard a basic forest as well. In fact, we could get rid of the Blighted Woodland, couldn't we? Because we're going to have more than enough basics here, thanks to the land tax. So let's get rid of that. Now, I'm not sure how this works actually. I think whilst Gaddock Teeg is phased out, you treat it as though it doesn't exist, which means our opponents are going to have a chance to go for non-creature spells that cost 4 or greater here. There is an Ankh of Mishra. Whenever a land enters, it deals 2 damage to that land's controller. So glad we got rid of the Blighted Woodland. Followed by the Skirk Prospector. They're going to have plenty of mana now because Krenko is going to be able to tap down and generate 5 tokens. This is exactly the time you wish Gaddock Teeg wasn't in play, when you want a board wipe. Then going for a Torbran of his own. That's really good in Krenko, so that means that these 1/1 goblins will kind of be 3/1s because they deal 2 extra damage. And these goblins are going in at the Nath player, which is understandable. They've got card draw in 2 forms, plenty of mana, and they're a deck that's going to force us to discard cards as well, so yeah, we've got a problem on our hands with Nath. We know they've got Krosan Grip in hand, which if they're eager to get rid of Sylvan Library, then they'll probably aim it there at the beginning of our turn. When I hastily went for the Teferi's Protection, completely forgot that Sylvan Library hadn't actually triggered yet. So while we're phased out, we can't draw any cards with Sylvan Library, and I doubt our opponent's going to give us the chance to trigger Sylvan Library next turn whilst we're phased in. But like I said, it gets the Krosan Grip out of their hand anyway, so I don't really regret it too much. Fierce Empath goes for a creature with CMC 6 or greater, so we can actually go for Sun Titan with that and get the Sylvan Library back out. The first land of the game coming into play and dealing 2 damage since the Ankh of Mishra has entered. And don't forget we're phased out, so no one's going to be swinging in at us. Leaving Torbran back. And if anyone's got a board wipe that can actually occur with Gaddock Teeg in play, it's Torbran. They can go for Electrickery and Pyroclasm, things like that. But I'm assuming they don't have it if they haven't gone for it yet. Maybe they've got instant speed stuff. Electrickery is an instant, I think. And that would deal 3 damage to every other creature. Now we need to see if Nath remembers to hold 3 mana up. They skip their draw step because of the Necropotence. And they go in for Nath. So at the beginning of Nath's upkeep, we'll discard a card at random. If we can keep a bunch of basics in our hand, then the chances are that we're going to discard basics. But there's every chance that you discard the Sun Titan that you tutor for, so that's just a risk we're going to have to run, I think. Also, it might be that Nath has targeted discard as well. And there's the land off the top, and another one with Oracle. This Necropotence and Oracle combination is doing very nicely. But they'll be dealt 2 damage every time they play a land, thanks to Krenko. And there's a Vamp Tutor on top as well. I bet they want a Necropotence into that. They don't have any black mana to cast it, though. They do have mana for Krosan Grip, though. Then they can untap an elf with the Wirewood Lodge. And they're untapping their Mana Dork that taps for 3 mana currently, green per elf our opponent controls. I think it's elf on the field, isn't it? Each elf on the battlefield, yeah. It's not actually relevant currently, but sometimes it is. Sometimes, I mean, we've got Wood Elves, for instance, and Reclamation Sage, cards like that. Fierce Empath. It'll add to the elf count on the battlefield and allow Priest of Titania to tap for more mana. Another elf in Immaculate Magistrate, and it doesn't look like our opponent is holding up mana for the Krosan Grip, actually. Which is good, that means we get another trigger with Sylvan Library. Then going for Necropotence again, and they've got a Veil of Summer, that's another really good one to know about. Doesn't affect us, it doesn't affect anyone at the table actually, so that's actually you and permanents you control. Yeah, a very good card, but completely useless in this matchup. Unless I'm missing something. Just going for 2 Necropotence effects, and that will take them up to 7 mana again. Yeah, I wish cards that you saw on top of the library would be in the revealed zone, because Well, that's where they should be, really. Now, land tax is going to trigger again. I think we're going to forego land tax this time. We can use it as a shuffle effect with Sylvan Library, though, which is nice. We can always fail to find. I don't think we know what's on top of our library, and if we do, then it's not all that memorable, is it? Oh no, it didn't trigger last turn, did it? And then the turn before that, we shuffled some stuff away. So we are actually regretting the fact that I didn't get Sylvan Library out a turn sooner. Let's just say no, because we don't need to bother shuffling. We draw into a land, and there is an Avacyn Angel of Hope. There's also an Acidic Slime. We're nowhere near Avacyn, and we don't want to discard her. Although, if we discard the Avacyn, we could reanimate it with Karmic Guide, couldn't we? We're definitely putting the land on top. Yeah, just for the sake of looking at more cards, let's just keep one of them. And then we can go for Bountiful Promenade and have 2 damage dealt to us with the Ankh of Mishra. Then I think I want to hold on to Fierce Empath. In fact, we could use Fierce Empath to go for the Gear Hulk, couldn't we? We're not getting into any ramp, unfortunately. Yeah, we'll try and keep the goblins from swinging in at us. Yeah, that's the problem. Torbran is really good. I don't suppose they mind swinging into an Acidic Slime, because they're just tokens, so who cares? Yeah, I think we need to go for Fierce Empath here, and it's a chump blocker at least. And then if we discard Avacyn or the Gear Hulk that we're going to go for, then at least we can reanimate it with Karmic Guide, assuming that we don't discard more than one card during Nath's turn. It's also noteworthy as well, by the way, that Gaddock Teeg switches off X spells, and we've already seen that this Torbran deck is running X spells, so it might be that, like if they've got Banefire and things like that, they can't actually go for it while Gaddock Teeg is in play. So that might be really hurting our opponent. We are going to search with the Fierce Empath. This will shuffle up our library. And, oh, Elish Norn. How close are we to an Elish Norn? That's 7 mana. We've got 6. Yeah, I think Elish Norn's better, actually. So instead of going for the Gear Hulk, let's go for Elish Norn. Forgot all about that. So we've announced to our opponents what we've got in hand, which I don't really like doing, but I'm just going to hope that there's nothing they can do about it. It probably means that Krenko is swinging at us with everything. I'm going to hope that they don't get into a haste goblin. Tap down Krenko, make a bunch of goblins with haste and swinging at us. That'll probably get rid of us, actually. Let's ditch a forest. And because we discarded to hand size, Nath gets an elf token. Forgot about that. That just means that this Priest of Titania is going to tap for a hell of a lot of mana next turn. Well, that's what I was worried about. Haste Enabler, Hammer of Perforos, and Krenko makes a bunch of goblins. Ugh. If they go in at us because they noticed that we went for Elish Norn, then that's us done for, I think. That is 6, 7, 8, 9 times 3 is 27, plus 6 here, but they're actually sacrificing goblins, surprisingly. They might be going for a Lord or something. Yeah, it is a Lord, Goblin Trashmaster. You can sacrifice a goblin to get rid of an artifact, of which, surprisingly, there are none in play. None other than the ones that the Krenko player controls, at least. So these goblins are going to deal 4 damage apiece, which is 20 damage from the tokens alone. Now, yeah, the goblin player's in a tricky situation. Gaddock Teeg is holding everyone off of the board wipes, but they know that they're pretty much guaranteed to see Elish Norn next turn, so do they want rid of us or not? Well, no, it's actually the discard that they seem to be worried about. Red does have trouble keeping cards in hand, so that coupled with discard is not very good, according to them. So they're swinging everything in at Nath, and they're having to block with Oracle and the Elf token. I doubt they want to block with their commander. I think they might be going down anyway here, or very close to it. Oh, and that's a big hit all the way down to 4. So Nath really has to do something this turn, and the best part is they can't really draw many cards with Necropotence. Oh, and there's that Electrickery I was thinking about. Yeah, the Torbran going for that on their turn. Electrickery is really good in Torbran. That's 3 damage to everything, nearly wiping the board. Unfortunately, not getting rid of Torbran or Nath though. But that might actually slow things down to the point where we might be able to stay in it then. What do we want to go for next turn? Acidic Slime onto the Hammer to get rid of haste. That might be a good idea. Torbran's really caught up with mana now. And if they've got something that's CMC 4 or greater, or with X in the converted mana cost, then now's the time to do it. Yeah, there it is. One with X, that is X damage to any target. If it would deal damage to a creature, it can't be prevented or redirected, basically. So that gets rid of the Krenko's Torbran, and then a Goblin Barrage, and that is kicked. They have sacrificed the Sol Ring to do this, and that is 4 damage to a target creature and to a target player or planeswalker. They can do this to a different creature and a different player. Doesn't have to be the creature's controller. So I suppose they could have kept the X spell and gone for 4 damage onto Torbran and 4 damage onto Nath. But they targeted Nath anyway. And then I think that just swung in at us. Yeah, Krenko is still at 40 life here. But we get to keep our Sylvan Library at least. That was a massive turnaround from what we thought was going to occur that turn. We are not doing too well here, are we? We've got our first mana rock at least, but that's the first bit of acceleration we've seen, I think. Put Command Tower on top, and maybe we go for Oracle of Muldiah and just get our commander back into play. So with Burn going around, I don't want to take too much damage, so we'll go for a Forest. Speaking of damage, there goes that again. Then we can go in for the Oracle of Muldiah. I don't think I put that land on top actually, which I should have done. Doesn't matter which order you put things on top with Sylvan Library. No, put the Chromatic Lantern on top. Could have cleared another card off the top there had I have put the Command Tower on top, but not to worry. And that's another damage. So going in for Gaddock Teeg here is a good idea, I think, because Torbran has shown that he's got X spells and big spells as well. Wouldn't have been able to get down either of those spells had it not have been for getting rid of Gaddock Teeg. Only 2 cards in hand though, which is noteworthy. That'll obviously be 3 at the beginning of their turn. A Faithless Looting from Krenko. They are really far behind now, because they've hardly made any lands this game. I think next turn our priority should be to get Avacyn into play so that we can keep the red players from burning us out and getting rid of our creatures with burn. So I'm just going to hope that the Torbran player doesn't have any more mass burn in hand. If we can keep all our stuff in play and drop the Avacyn, I think we win this one. And they discarded a Staff of Nin and a Vandal Blast, by the way. So I'm hoping that they got into... Oh no, they actually didn't get into any lands because they didn't play them. A creature from Torbran. That's Landfall. And it deals 1 damage to any target. If that lands a mountain, it's 2 instead, which would be 4 with Torbran. So that is Landfall of either 3 or 4. And Torbran gonna deal 4 damage to the Krenko player. And it looks as though we're surviving until our next turn. As is our Gaddock Teeg. We get into the Wrath of God, which I don't mind having in hand, actually. What can we play this turn? We've got 3 into Chromatic Lantern, and then 1 from Chromatic Lantern. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that is Avacyn, Angel of Hope, and Chromatic Lantern. So let's put Wrath on top. And we'll put the Command Tower on top as well so we can play it. We're going to take some damage here from the artifact, unfortunately. But has to be done, I think. Then let me just make sure I'm getting everything right. That is 3 there, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And Avacyn is 8. Yes, so let's get that down. Chromatic Lantern's in here for mana fixing. It's also in here along with Urborg, which some people find confusing for obvious reasons. this isn't a black deck. But they're in here to make the fetches tap for mana. We don't always want to crack the fetches if we like what's on top with Sylvan Library or Miri's Guile. We can also tap down the Ancient Tomb that is in this deck without taking any life, which is relevant in situations like this. So we're doing alright with mana and everything here. I think we still need to hold back. Yeah, I just want to hold back in case something crazy happens with... I don't think Krenko's going to come out again this game, but I'm just really worried about something going wide on us. As for next turn, I think it is Acidic Slime onto that thing so that we can actually get lands out without taking a bunch of damage. And then our priority is getting into this Torbran player, because they're the most likely to take us out of the game, I think. So maybe it's Acidic Slime, get rid of that, and then Karmic Guide onto the Fierce Empath. That'll shuffle up our library and it'll put something good into our hand as well. We could actually go for life gain with Dragonlord Dromoka, couldn't we? Another haste enabler in Goblin Warchief. Makes goblins cost 1 less to cast. So if they get into... How much is Krenko now? It'll be 6. So 1 more land and they'll be able to get Krenko out again. And it'll have haste twice. So we've actually got 2 threats at the table here. Now with 3 cards in hand, let's see what Torbran can do. We don't have to worry about a big X spell. We don't have to worry about Gaddock Teeg leaving play, I don't think, because it's indestructible. I don't really see what Torbran can do. Maybe they've got Ugin in the deck or something like that, but I wouldn't have thought you'd see Ugin in a Torbran deck. A Coalition Relic to get more mana on the go. And then a Shock onto the Haste Enabler, which is fair enough. The last thing we want is a horde of goblins coming into play. And that puts our opponent probably a couple of turns away at least from Krenko. You never know, they might get into Ancient Tomb or Mana Crypt or something like that. But it looks like this red player wants rid of Krenko. They're obviously not going to swing in at us. Knocking Krenko down to 24. They've still got time to get back into it. Yeah, let's put the only Wrath in the deck on top, apart from the Gear Hulk, of course. Let's put that on top. And we'll shuffle away the Kodama's Reach as well, I think. Yeah, I think we go in for Karmic Guide, and we'll try and get down Dragonlord Dromoka here. Karmic Guide is flying and protection from black, with an echo cost of 5, which we are probably not going to pay. But we're going to reanimate our Fierce Empath here and get down the Dragonlord Dromoka because I want to gain some life. So there we go, it can't be countered, not that that matters in this particular game. Now I think we're free to swing in here. Let's go after the Krenko player first. Actually, no, I want to go after the Burn player because they have the most mana and they're the most likely to knock us out of the game. I don't really know what they could get into. They'd need a big damage spell to take us out directly past all of our creatures. Either that or a big X burn spell to pour all their mana into, neither of which they can cast. So they might be able to go for something, but I don't know what it is. Went for Dragonlord Dromoka because it has lifelink, and also your opponents can't cast spells during your turn in typical Celestia fashion. That's what this deck is built around, things like that. But it's also got lifelink, 5/7 with lifelink, so we'll be able to stay out of range of the burn players, I think. Yeah, so we are stopping our opponents from playing cards here. This is the thing, Gaddock Teeg doesn't necessarily feel all that great because you can't see what you're keeping your opponents from doing. But the Krenko player has said that if we swing in at the Torbran player, then he can kill them. But clearly, they can't cast whatever spell they were thinking of there. Here is a Flying Goblin. Power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control. So that will be a 1/1 flyer. Now it's time to see if this Torbran can do anything. Now 2 cards in hand. And yeah, it's just the red players having a bit of fun here, I think, and trying to take each other out. Okay, the Karmic Guide triggers. We're not going to go for putting the Echo Cost into Karmic Guide. I'm going to drop the Elesh Norn this turn to switch off the Krenko, make sure that he doesn't make a massive comeback. And we'll also buff our creatures massively. So we'll say no there. We'll gain more life from the Dragon Lord Dramoka with the Elesh Norn buff. And yeah, I was going to say, I thought we shuffled the library. We did. And that Wrath of God is desperate to come out. Well, it's not coming out. It's going to go back on top along with the Wasteland. And I'm just going to take some damage here. Oh, we could go for Acidic Slime, couldn't we? Yeah, let's get down Elesh Norn first, and then see how much mana we've got left. Yeah, if we go for Acidic Slime first onto the Mishra, then we can go for Elesh Norn after that. So let's go like that. And we'll get rid of that finally. How much damage has that dealt over the course of the game? And then I messed up with stacking the Sylvan Library again. I don't often play Sylvan Library thanks to it being banned in 1 versus 1, so we should have put Wrath of God in the hand, put the 2 lands on top, but don't think it really matters. I have switched off a little bit from this game because I think we've won this one. Should never assume though. Never know what's going to happen. Alright, so we pretty much switch off all of our opponent's creatures. We certainly keep Krenko from doing anything this game, I think. So we can go 17 into Torbran. That is enough to take them out, I think. 17, 20, 24. Yeah, so we'll go for Gaddock into the Krenko player. And we should be drawing this game to a close now, I think. So there we go. We take Torbran out of the game and knock the Krenko player down to 8. And a big thank you to both of the players that we've knocked out so far for playing it out, because I'm sure that at least the Torbran player realised that they were out of this game a few turns ago, and instead of scooping decided to play it out anyway. Krenko can come out with haste here, but won't do him any good, because as soon as the token comes into play it will die to Elesh Norn. And yeah, deciding to scoop it up there saves us the trouble of attacking in. Say good game to our opponents. They seemed like pleasant individuals. A lot of the time you get salty players, as you've all seen on this channel. So by no means is this the way that you should, quote, should, unquote, build Gaddock Teeg. Really the way to build Gaddock Teeg is with hate bears and tax effects. But if any of you have been around the channel for any length of time, then you know that I don't really like to keep my opponents from playing the game. That is the most efficient and best way of playing Gaddock Teeg, but I didn't want to just play solitaire magic. So I decided to build a big creatures list. Took us a while to get into any creatures at all, but eventually got into them and pretty much rode the Sylvan Library to victory there. I was very surprised to see Sylvan Library survive when we knew that Krosan Grip was in the Nath's hand, but they decided not to go for it for some reason, so that really secured victory for us, I think. Had they have gotten rid of it, we could have gone for the Sun Titan anyway and got it back out of the graveyard, so I don't think it would have been a huge loss to us, but it might have steered the course of the game elsewhere anyway. Anyhow, hopefully you all enjoyed this game, and if you would like to help out the channel, then you can hit the subscribe button and the like button. That genuinely does help the channel. It tells YouTube to push certain videos and stuff, and the more people see the videos, then the more views and subscribers we can get, the bigger the channel gets, and well, that just means that the bigger the channel is, the better it is for everyone, surely. So a big thank you to you all for watching. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.